So that was the woven series. We have started to move into the knit series for Stop the Insanity,
Mm-hmm.
but we have not started physically working on anything or Janet showing you a demo yet. We're going to do that today. But this last week we did the Knit Fit supplement, which is on YouTube. So if you need to see that, an easy way to find it is on YouTube. It's on the Facebook page too. But Brenda uploaded it to YouTube for you. And did you want to give them a reminder about that?
Well, she also added it to the Knit Fit series. So it's an additional video on the Knit Fit series under the playlist. But what my goal was last week is just to give you an update and maybe help drive home the point of moving the stitching line. And for some of you, I know it helped, and others, I don't know till, I hear from you. But just remember, when you're pin fitting your shoulders and your side seams together, you're going to start with the shoulders. Remember that the seam line is not going to necessarily be in the same place anymore in the front and the back. So if your pattern called for a 5/8 inch seam allowance front and back, and you basted it together and the back looks nice, but the front's got a lot of drag or sloppy or whatever, then keep the seam line in the back at 5/8 because that is fitting you right. Now adjust the front by adding or subtracting until you get it pinned to that seam line where everything is just smooth, and then you've got it right. Straight across the shoulder, centered on the shoulder, then smooth, and then go to the side seam. So anyway, I feel like I can't say it enough, but you'll see the video, and I'm here for questions anytime you like. And if you're having some serious difficulties, we do have a support package available to get 3 back and forths with me with photographs and circles and arrows and all kinds of directions to help guide you from a distance. So that's available as well. So if you've got your knit fit ready, if you've made a t-shirt that you've got the pattern fitted correctly, then that's when you're ready to start making changes to that pattern. So in effect, this will be your sloper, your base pattern, your block, whatever. There's lots of terms for it. But for everything knit that fits the torso, you'll start with this pattern and you'll be able to change the neckline, change the sleeves, turn it into other than just a t-shirt, maybe a dress. We've got lots of ideas. We hope you have some ideas too that you'll send our way. But you want that pattern to confirm a good fit before you start doing all this. So make sure you've got a good fit and then join us and start making all these fun changes and making some new clothes for the summer.
Yes, and I have an update for Aline.
Oh.
She posted 2. We talked about that, so she's going to get the $25 gift card. But she's made 5.
5 camp shirt conversions.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Aline is having a great time. I know I got an email from her earlier this week, and she was having the time of her life making these.
But knowing all these changes, I know between her different choices of fabric, I know the 2 that she showed us, very different, very different choices of fabric. Between the choices of fabric and the changes that you can make, I mean, she has 5. She can wear one every single day and nobody would know it was the same pattern.
Exactly. That's the whole point, because all patterns start from the same base, fitting the torso. So yeah, and that's where you change it up, add collar, subtract, facings, sleeves, whatever. And so she's off to the races.
She needs 2 more or she has nothing to wear on the weekend. Well, she's gonna.
Or maybe she'll do knits.
She'll do knits for the weekend. All right. So Janet has some demos for you on the knits. Now, have we talked about the pattern that you're starting with? Are you starting with a block, or what are you starting with? One of your patterns?
I am starting with CS 1207, which is part of the Knit Fit. So if you purchase the Knit Fit kit, you got this pattern. This pattern actually has 3 different necklines in it already, but this is a great base to get your block together. But once you do, then you've got a t-shirt pattern. So that's CS 1207. You can buy it separately on the website, or it is included along with a few other things and the fabric in the Knit Fit kit. So I highly recommend the Knit Fit kit. But either way, you'll be on your way to getting a good knit fit.
Sandy wants to know if you'll be talking about making a nightgown out of one of your patterns.
Yes.
So not today, but in the series we will get into that. So stick with us, Sandy.
Yes.
And are you ready?
I am ready.
Are you ready? I won't wait for you to answer. I will assume you are ready. And I will give you a minute to say otherwise because I need to turn the camera to face Janet.
How am I doing? Am I in the right place?
Sure.
Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that you might want to change the neckline. And one would be to just freehand it on your dress form. Now, don't panic. It's not the only way. But sometimes it can really help because you may know from here to here how deep of a neckline you want. You know, some people might want to go all the way down here. You see a lot of that today. But you may want to make it more modest or less modest. It's completely up to you. So you'll know that, let's say this is where, as low as I want to go. It's right here. So that's my stitching line. Now I'm going to decide what shape I want. And it could be just about anything, square, asymmetrical, but I would probably make myself a little dashed line like that. Now, I don't know, can they see that? Because I can darken it. So I have some experience at freehand, but if you don't have to do it this way. Don't be nervous. And here's the other good news. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is just your muslin. This is just an idea. And actually, if you wanted to confirm this was in the right place, you could actually end up cutting it out and putting it back on to make sure, knowing this is the stitching line. Knowing this is the stitching line. Now, one thing, whenever you're transferring new cut lines to a pattern or new design lines, you always want to do it on the half. So in other words, you see I didn't go up here. I didn't draw the other side because our pattern, number one, is cut on the fold. And so, and the reason we want to do it on the fold is then we will know that this side is going to be identical to this side. So what we'll do in the end is take this off the dress form, and to transfer it over to the pattern, we will fold it right on the fold line. Now, I would normally take this apart, but I think you'll get the idea. Let me turn this way. But of course, just like we did last week, we would take it apart so we could lay it out nice and even. Get that over there. Everything's lined up. And then here's our tissue pattern. So we would just lay our tissue pattern on there, being very precise. So again, I would have to open this up because I don't know for a fact that I am hitting it in the right place because the seam is together here. Let me see if I can pull this out. Oh, yes. All right. Let me pull this one out too, and we'll just do it right. Okay. So now we're going to make sure that everything is, there's no substitute for getting it on the straight, so make sure you've got it down the center and folded properly, and everything is lined up. It's giving me a little bit of a hard time because it's a soft knit, but anyway, there we go. So once we're sure everything is right, just like last week with the new stitching lines, we're going to line up the pattern, and then we'll trace that right out. Now remembering, and I can't say this enough, I don't think, that our, what am I saying? Sorry, I can't.
Remembering.
Yeah, remembering. I don't know what I was remembering. Okay.
I don't know, but you can't say it enough, so.
That's true. Okay, so now where did my, come on, I have my curve here. Oh, there it is. Oops. Oops. All right, here's a tool that really helps with necklines. And you're not sure you can get a nice curve. So we're going to make sure we get a really nice curve. Now this I would not do with a marker, but I forgot to bring a pen over here, so but this will help you get that really nice curve. And remember that you want to make sure that your shoulder seams are still going to hook up and not have a big empty space in it. Now here's what I was trying to say. This is the stitching line, so we still need, I need a pen.
Still need a pen.
Still need a pen. Here's the rest. All right, so we still need to add that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to add that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and that is the cut line. Once we've added the seam allowance, that is our cut line. You have a question, Jess?
No, you're good.
Okay. And so on. I mean, this isn't exactly smooth up here, but I think you're getting the idea. So this is exactly where we knew we wanted it to fall on the body. We arced it up. This is a great tool. There's lots of different curves that could be of help so that you get it nice and even. And again, we do this on one side only because when we fold it in half, we know we get an exact mirror image so our neckline isn't askew.
That's
Okay.
your personal curve, but you carry those now on the website?
This?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, these are on the website along with the hip curve as well, which is right here. So that often can be of some help. Now this one is not a sharp enough curve, so I would want this one. And what's nice about this one is you've got a lot of different very sharp curve to a very shallow curve, almost straight. So this one is really versatile. Okay, so if we drew our neckline out, and there's lots of different ways to do it, this is how we would transfer it to the pattern. The next way that you could do is that, let's say you had a pattern and you like the neckline on that pattern, but that pattern you've never fitted to yourself and you know this one fits. So all we need to do is to superimpose the new one on top, but let's make sure that we keep it, number one, everything always needs to stay on straight grain. So anytime you're doing something like this, we're going to line up that fold so we know that we're exactly on straight grain. And everything, and then we want this shoulder here so that it's going to be that same neckline. And then again, now this is your cut line. This is not your stitch line. This is from a pattern that already has the seam allowance on it. So all we have to do is trace that out. And you'll see here this pink. Put it together here. Is that new cut line. So when we're drawing our own, we need to add the seam allowance. But when we're tracing it off another pattern, we don't, because that is already there. And always, when you're making adjustments like this, especially if you're new to playing around with your patterns, make a sample. Now, you can do it with your muslin, or you could do it with some inexpensive knit. And if all you want to do is test the neckline, you can cut that pattern right here, right across the bust line or someplace in here. So you're just cutting small pieces of scrap knit so that you can test the neckline. You don't need the whole thing to test the neckline. So that's how we change a neckline. Now, in the newsletter, and I
question from
oh sure.
Arlene says, well, I think it's a question, but it's more of a statement question.
Okay.
I was always told to make the center point a straight line for about a 1/4 inch.
Well, you can't do that if you want a V, but certainly if you look at this one, and this is the neckline of our Easy V. It does go slightly straight here, but Arlene, there is no always. There is no always in something like that. You just have to test it and try it out. But that's a really good rule of thumb, to have a little bit of an area right there that you can call even, little, rather than it coming to an exact point. And those of you who've made the 5 easy tees, you know ours looks like it comes to a point, but we fool the eye by doing that with the band, not the neckline. So this is the neckline of the V-neck Easy V. So, but there's lots of ways to accomplish a V. But yes, I think that is a good rule of thumb, Arlene. Okay, so in the newsletter that I repurposed from our original Knit Fit series, I'm giving you the details on how to measure your neckline. So everything is very clearly outlined, 1, 2, 3. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to, like I did here when I wanted to add the seam allowance, take a little ruler and mark the seam allowance all the way around the neckline on both the front and the back pieces, and the seam allowance across the shoulder. Then you're going to lay one on top of the other so that that seam line is right on top as if it had been sewn. Tape it down or weight it down. Keep it so it doesn't move. Then you want to measure this exact line from fold to fold. And without any special tools, the best way to do that is with a basic tape measure. And let's say we were going to measure this line. We would stand it right up. Well, let's see, this is our seam line, so I'll put it on here. So we'd stand it right up on top of that and carefully hang on to it. Don't let it go anywhere. And when you get done, I would say this is like 7 1/4. So then we're going to go, but we would be measuring all the way around to the back. So this would be superimposed over the stitch line, over the seam line. So we'll pretend like that's the seam line. Oh, no, we won't. We need to turn this over. We're going to have a problem. Okay, so then we'll pretend like that's the seam line. So then we're going to measure from the fold around to this fold. That is half the distance of your neckline. Now you're going to double that. So let's guess at, I'll use even numbers. So let's guess that it's 12. So let's say this neckline is 12 inches. That's the stitching line. Remember, it's the stitching line. Yes, the solid line. What did I do? I was measuring the cut line. Sorry. All right. So we're measuring the stitching line. And let's say that we came up with 12. All right, that's half of our neckline. So we want to times 12 by 2, which equals 24 inches. Now we have to add seam allowance. And remember that we're going to cut this band, would be 24 inches, but we have to add seam allowance of 1/4 of an inch to both ends. Well, you just take 24, add a half, and now we know our neckband or our seam. I'm sorry, I missed a step. All right, so first of all, we know that our neckline is 24 inches. Now we have to multiply that times 0.89 to get the length of the band. Then we add the 1/2 inch seam allowance, which means we have 1/4 at each end. So when we match it up and we sew it, that 1/2 inch disappears and we're back to our original measurement. But you're going to have to do this, and I can't do this here. I have to have a calculator. But that is a good place to start. Times 0.89 plus the 1/2 inch for the seam allowance. Now, if your fabric is really loose and very stretchy, like some of this lighter weight stuff, you may want to step it down. And you have to do that by trial and error sometimes. Once you get the feel of the knits, it won't be a big issue. But
let's go over that one more time. You measured, just to make sure.
I measured
the front and the back.
The stitching line.
The stitching line of the front and the back of one side.
All the way to the fold from one end to the other.
You got 12 for the sake of this example.
Right. So we need to double that.
24.
To 24. Then we're going to multiply it times 0.89. Well, we want it to be slightly smaller than the neckline. When you add, and some of you may have experienced this, and I see it online a lot, people put their band on their t-shirt and they put it on the website and they're very proud to post it. But what I see is the band's tipping forward because it's too big and it's not cupping in. Now, they may have stretched out the neckline while sewing it on, or their neckband may be too big. But in either case, it should cup and lay up against the body. And in order to get it to do that, we need to make it slightly smaller, which is 89% of the distance that we're going to sew. So we're subtracting 11%, and then we're going to ease it, and that's in the pattern guide. It'll show you how to quarter it and ease it. And that's what makes the neckline lay up against your body so nicely, and that neckband not pop out. Was that better now, I think?
Okay, so you're going to multiply the final number by 0.89, and then you are going to add your 1/2 inch for your seam allowance.
That's right. Which means it's really a 1/4 inch seam allowance because we've added 1/4 to each end. All right, so here's the neckband. And this is what you want, is this nice laying flat against the body. Now, the body is not flat. You know, we have a bust, so there's rounding to go over. But look how well that lays. And that's because it's about 11% less than the actual stitching line, which causes it all to pull in toward the body and lay so nice and not flop out forward. So if you were having that trouble before, it is most likely because your band was not the right size.
Or you stretched it out.
Or you stretched it out, yes.
Okay, so as far as fabric is concerned, making the muslin, Brenda is asking, when making a muslin out of knit, should you use a fabric as close to the final garment as you can?
Yes, absolutely. You should use something that is of a similar weight. Um, and or it depends on how far off you are. You may be able to turn your muslin into your final project. Your first one, like we did here with the knit fit, no, those are, you were really just playing to get a good fit. And sometimes we have to add fabric and patch things, making sure we get a good fit. But after that, you know that the shirt fits, and all you're doing is changing the neckline. So chances are you won't have to make a whole muslin to get that right. Now, you decide how much experience you have and how confident you are. And so, if you're confident, then you probably are going to be able to turn it right into a t shirt. If you're a little shy or a little new, you're not comfortable, then yeah, you may make yourself a working muslin. A lot of you may know Sandra Betsina, and one thing she told me many years ago, what she liked to do for a muslin is to use a similar fabric from her stash, something that maybe just been sitting around, you might as well use it up. And then she says, if it works and everything fits, she goes, I have a garment instead of just a muslin. And then I can go on to make more. But if it doesn't, I'm not sad because I wasn't using the fabric anyway. So that's another good way to think about making muslins. You might just get a garment out of it.
Yes. Sandy asks, so do you mark the stitching line on the pattern and measure that line, not the cutting?
That's correct. That's correct. You need both. You need your stitching line because that's where you're going to stitch. So that's what you're measuring so you know how big to make the band. But you also need your cut line on there so you know where to cut. But the stitching line is what we're measuring, not the cut line. And a lot of people make that mistake. They measure the cut line instead.
Yes, Judith. Judith said, I call what I do a wearable muslin.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's what Anne did too with her camp shirts.
Mm-hmm.
She said, it's a wearable muslin. And maybe sometimes that wearable muslin is something you wear around the house or to the grocery store. And your final garment is the one that you wear to your event or something.
Well, when I did that kimono sleeve camp shirt a couple weeks ago, and it was in light blue, and I loved it. I put it on, but when I watched the video back, I could see that I had too much fabric in this area right here. So I went back. Now that blue one's still nice, and I'm still going to wear it. But when I went to make this one, I made pattern adjustments. So that's my wearable muslin, and now this is my finished pattern because I like the way this fits best. So yeah, I got two shirts out of it, but one I like the fit of better than the other. I'm getting a thumbs up from Jessica.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Good job. Good job.
Well, I'm really sorry I missed that step and confused everybody, but I think we went back over it well enough. Plus, you have the newsletter. So make sure if you don't have that newsletter or you're not signed up for our newsletter, let us know and we'll make sure you get a copy.
Well, and I have to say that Sandy made a comment, and sometimes it's just seeing what other people do that kind of puts the light bulb in your head of why didn't I think of something so simple. And she said that you printed out the newsletter and brought it over to the table with you, and she's like, why didn't I think of that?
Oh,
And I do that too. I know a lot of people, we have our devices, and so you can always pull it up on your phone or your tablet or your whatever. But I'm more of a, like, I would write on it, just like Janet wrote on it. I would write my notes on there. And you can't always do that on your phone. So there is a little suggestion there too that you didn't even plan on giving.
Yeah. Yes, there's lots of ways to skin a cat. It's just always, again, I can't impress on you enough that everything needs to be on the straight of grain. So make sure everything lines up so that when you do make that neckline change, you're still going to fit at the shoulders. Your garment's still going to hang straight.
And Brenda says your choice of buttons is perfect on your shirt.
Oh, thanks, Brenda. You know, this is like a miracle because I have probably thousands of buttons. And every time I make a garment for myself, I go in. You think I can find a button that's going to. No.
Not when the alternate choice is shopping.
Yeah. But this time, I walked in and there they were. And they're perfect. I love them with this fabric. So, yeah, but thank you. I was like, it's a miracle. I actually have buttons that match something.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
No, you probably have more of those.
No, this was it. I had 5. I don't know where they came from. I have no idea, but they did work perfect. So I'm happy with them. And this is fabric we have on the website. It is linen rayon, and it has the most beautiful drape, and it is extremely comfortable. It's every bit as comfortable as the Cupro and then some. So it's a really nice fabric. All right, what else do we have to talk about today?
No, Sandy, I'm not telling her that.
Okay, what is it?
No, I'm not telling you.
I could go back and look later.
You're gonna do it anyway. She said now you have to buy more buttons for your stash.
Oh, no. No, I don't think so.
Okay, Ruth has a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you talked about how you had your blue shirt was your muslin, and now it's your wearable muslin, but you made some changes to it to make a better fit in the shirt that you're wearing.
Mm-hmm.
She said, how hard would it have been to change the blue shirt to make it the fit that you wanted, and would it be worth it?
Well, it depends on who you are, but it's not difficult. Let me just show you quick. I happen to have it right here, the changes I made, and it would not be difficult because.
But it just didn't bother you enough.
So. Well, I considered changing it, but what I did was I shortened the shoulder by 1.5 inches, and then I angled the sleeve. Let me lay it out here so you can see. I angled the sleeve so that it went back in toward the body the way a short sleeve should. But this isn't really a sleeve, right? So all I'd have to do is take the band off and recut this area. This is shorter, this is at an angle now, and I didn't cut very much out of here, just a little. So that's all I'd have to do. Then I would just have to put the band back on. So it wouldn't be a big difference, no. I mean a big job. It's just how much do you like to stitch rip? So for me, I may or may not change it, but I will make more because now I love the fit. I really love the fit.
That's all I got.
That's all you got. That's all the questions we have.
But of course, if they have any questions when they go to do this themselves, email us, islandersewing@contact.net.
You can see that this was my original pattern. And in order to play with it, to get it like this, I actually was folding and taping, tried a few different things, but this is my working pattern. Now that I have the exact fit I want, then I traced it out, put all the exact markings, dates, everything I want on it. I will hang on to my working one just in case something happens to this one. But that's what you want to do. When you get it all done, don't settle for this, because what would happen is I could come back a year from now and I want to make some more of those. Well, I forgot to put the fold lines on the front, and everything's kind of taped and a little messy, and I might be confused. So once you get it just right, take the time to make the final pattern. So next week we'll be doing more knit work. We will work on a swing tee. So swing tees, I've noticed, are really big. In a lot of the catalogs, a lot of the higher end even, are doing a swing tee, which means that we're going to flare it out a little bit. So, and it'll hang a little looser on the hip. So that's what we'll do next week. If that sounds interesting, I hope you'll join us.
I hope you join us anyway.
Oh.
All right.
Okay, so again, get yourself ready with a proper fit to your knit pattern, and then you'll be able to see all the changes. I can't promise all the changes I'm going to do, but I have several in mind. I will tell you we'll do the swing tee next week, and we are going to eventually do a nightgown. So, and let us know if there's something that you'd like to see, and if it is something we can do here, we will definitely entertain that.
Yes, and if you need a knit to make your shirt,
Yeah.
don't forget the 15% off with the code YIPPY.
Yippee. And we have beautiful bamboo knits. We've got some beautiful prints, very limited edition. We've run out of one of them already. We weren't able to acquire a lot. Prints in bamboo are hard to find, and but I think they're being used so heavily in ready to wear that might be why. And then we have some solids. We have some rayon jerseys, and we have some heather jerseys and some solid bamboos. Lots of beautiful knits. They're very high quality, so they are well worth your time to sew them up.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Yes, we will. Tuesdays at 2 here at Islander Sewing Systems. I'm Janet Prey. I'm here every week with Jessica Johnson. And we hope you're having fun with stopping the insanity and making some fun garments for the summer. See you next week here on Facebook, Tuesdays at 2.